Hi, I'm Stephanie Allen. I'm your collections management professor, and this is where I work, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. I love walking through the ROM on my lunch break, and I can have a romp through time and space. It is a feeling like no other, and it's one that you never ever tire of. When I think about my museum origin story, I don't quite know where to begin. I go back as far as I can remember and try to figure out where I fell in love with history. The reality is I can't. I've always been in love with history since I was a child. My mother used to take me to places like this, in what she called spirit walking, which was her quest to find our ancestors. She was an avid genealogist. But for me, I was always interested in the bigger story, just beyond our family, what was happening in the community. I remember asking myself, why did they choose that image for their headstone, and what does this quote mean? And all of those things that represent a life. So in some ways, it's not that far off that I have brought you here for my introductory video. And that is, every headstone that you see here represents a life, and each one of those lives has a story to tell. And that's essentially what we do in museums. We collect objects that have a story to tell. Sometimes that story is just one of aesthetics, and sometimes it's one of, important moments in history, and sometimes it's important figures in history. And this is just a different way of telling that story. So when you think about what is a museum, I want you to think bigger. I want you to think beyond the four walls and the Doric columns of a museum, and just to think, how do we tell stories of our past? This is a good place to start. Here I am at the grave of JH Mcdonald, member of the Group of Seven. He's interred here in Prospect Cemetery. And when you see this headstone, you're reminded of his life and his accomplishments and all the things that he did, and by association, the Group of Seven and all the work that they did. And all of that is imbued in this headstone. It represents a life lived, it represents a story told, or maybe a story to tell. I remember as a child going to Drumheller and what is now the Royal Tyrrell Museum. At the time, it was a collection of dinosaur bones. I think there might have been a museum there. They had these big cast dinosaurs out in the park, which was the Badlands. And I remember saying to my dad, I'm gonna work here one day. All sparked by that visit to Drumheller, a museum that inspired that lifelong passion. If you could catalog one object in the world, what would it be? You could examine anything up close and personal. So that is the one question, and my answer to that is the bagpipes of Private James Richardson. He was a Canadian soldier piper during World War I. He was based out of British Columbia. And the bagpipes were actually repatriated to Canada, about 10 years ago, and they are currently on display in the BC legislature. So if I could catalog anything, that would be it. Because in addition to being a cemetery spirit walker, I'm also a bagpiper, and I tend to play my bagpipes in cemeteries a fair bit. That's my origin story, why I love museums, what is the one piece of cultural property that I would catalog, and one interesting fact about me. So I would love it if you guys could put together something similar. Doesn't have to be similar, but just a video that just tells me those types of things about yourself, inspirations, origin stories, things that you love, the reasons you chose this career, what some of the most interesting artifacts in the world are to you, and let's just share this. Because we are teaching remotely this year, everything is going to have to be through video and video chat. So I think the more we can learn about each other and our reasons for being here, the better. Please tell me I was recording that.